everyone, it's Lawrence here, back with some of that hard-hitting games journalism. Thought I was gone, but I'm back, talking about video games. Here we go. Today, that's taking the form of a preview of Outriders. This is the next game from People Can Fly. If you're not familiar with them, this is the same studio that did, let's see, Gears of War Judgment, Bulletstorm, and if you want to throw it way back, Painkiller. I actually love that game because I love every game about an emo dude who shoots demons.
They say you're quite the soldier.
Yeah, I can take care of myself.
Good.
Yeah, People Can Fly have a pretty long history of making like really fast, really intense shooters, so that's kind of what I was hoping for. Right off the top, I didn't think I got it, but then I did. It's kind of confusing. Let me just say that like I had a lot of fun with it, but you know, let's just get it right out into the open, okay? This is Outriders. One hand has the gun, the other one has the magic. Like right away, you can look. It's just Destiny with guns, right? It's kind of not, but it takes a while to kind of figure that out. Well, for starters, it's third person, and it has a cover system. And this is also from the studio that made Gears of War Judgment. So, okay, then it's Gears of War with Destiny with guns, right? Well, it's still really not that either. It's more like Diablo with guns, if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't, but that's really what it is. And I had a really good time with it. More importantly, the game actually pushed back a little bit. It forced me to use actual strategy and actual technique. I'd hit buttons at the right time, in the right order, which already kind of means it's just a little more interesting to me than Diablo 3 or anything that wasn't a raid in Destiny. And I should say, like, I actually really like Destiny and Diablo 3, but I always kind of like games that push back a little bit and kind of ask something of you, and Outriders definitely did that. But let's cover our bases first. If I'm being real honest, the beats of Outriders' story and setting are pretty typical for a video game. Earth dies, you gotta go to a new planet, and then something weird happens. Lots of people are killed, a chosen few get superpowers, and now this planned utopia on a new planet has all gone feral and turned into a kind of Mad Max-style insanity shithole thing. You know, you with gun hand and magic hand now have the power to tame this horrific and savage land. If you played any video game in recent memory, I guess Rage 2 kind of comes to mind. Setting like this, just on its premise alone, probably won't blow your socks off, but they did put some effort into developing the lore for the game. There is effort paid towards the story, more than in something like Rage 2. They actually try to develop the characters, write backstories for them. There's just more effort and lore there than maybe in other games, like Destiny, you're kind of just happy to skip over. You know, unless you read all the cards, and even then it barely makes sense. There's a little more effort put into the dialogue, too. I actually enjoyed a lot of the conversations that I found in my preview. Writing's pretty good, and I actually appreciated the camera work. It made the dialogue scenes a little more interesting than just two talking heads rambling dialogue at each other. And as you might expect, there's an in-game codex that dishes up character profiles and lore beats to fill out all the gaps that your character was frozen in time, traveling through space, or frozen in time again on the planet. I won't dig too much into the actual story or the characters or anything like that, because if that's what you like in games, discovering it all for yourself is kind of the point. All I can say is that I'm excited to learn more about it, and I do think that that's a fun way to divide your time in a game like this. See a bunch of people's heads explode, then read a little bit of lore, and go back to more explosions. So, good balance there. But on to what really matters, magic and guns together at last, again. Outriders' structure is fairly straightforward, kind of easy to explain because it's been in games before. There's a hub where you can absorb lore, pack up a bunch of side quests into a log, pick what you want to do, buy and sell gear. You can even craft equipment, though I didn't see many details on how the crafting system worked. I can only assume it's something like Diablo 3, you just pour a bunch of resources in, you get a randomized thing out that's roughly on your level. Just assumptions there. Once you choose an activity or a quest, you'll then transfer to a level that has you running through a series of arenas packed full of slavering hordes that you can shoot to death or give them a bit of the old magic hands razzle-dazzle. Yes, I know it still sounds exactly like Destiny, but how about this? You have 3 guns and 3 magical powers on cooldown that... Yes, I know, it still sounds like Destiny. Well, how about this? There's gear, you pick up pants and shirts and guns that have bigger numbers on them, and then the arrow points up and you click... Okay, I get it. I promise it is actually different than Destiny, but it'll take some digging to explain into the actual gameplay systems. There are some really interesting mechanics here that throw a different flavor on Outriders beyond Destiny's, you know, click on the heads gameplay loop. Which, you know, I'm saying without shade, by the way, I actually really like Destiny, but Outriders is different. The first tweak to the gameplay flow is that each of Outriders' 4 classes all have a unique health recovery mechanic that tied to their play style. For example, the Devastator is basically the tank, the big old rock man. He gets a health regen buff if he kills anyone in close range. The Pyromancer, this is ranged to DPS basically, he shoots little flame jets out of his hands, gets healed by killing specific enemies that they mark with their skills. So you mark an enemy, you shoot it with flame, and then you get some health back. I played through the demo as the Trickster. This is like the hit and away assassin sort of DPS kind of character. That class gets an instant health boost and a shield buff when they kill anything in close range. The idea being that it's supposed to match the particular playstyle that you're doing. If you're a tank, you're just sitting in the middle of everything, killing stuff, and health regen is supposed to roll in as you slowly take damage, whereas maybe something like an assassin character needs to pounce on the enemies that are already low on life to get its health back. It's a cool idea. And if you can count, and you should be proud if you can, you realize that was 3 classes and not 4. Well, there's going to be 4 in the main game, but they only showed us 3 in the demo, so there you go. The mystery is solved. No Illuminati here. But the health recovery mechanic does so much to make it play differently than, say, Destiny or Gears. By rewarding aggression with health, the game has more of a Doom 2016 flavor, where it's all about momentum and skill-based play versus the I got shot so I gotta hide behind a rock flavor that you'd find in something like Destiny or Gears. The second gameplay tweak that makes Outriders gameplay a little more unique are its character skills, and also where you start to see some of these Diablo flavors start to come in. In my play session, the Trickster got a pretty straightforward psychic slash that, I gotta be honest, looks pretty awesome. God bless this game for going straight for an M rating. Also got a time bubble that slowed down enemies and bullets, and most interestingly, a nothing personnel attack that warps you right behind a targeted enemy and gives you an instant shield boost, in addition to slowing the enemy you warped behind. The ability to instantly move around the arena really changes the texture of combat in a way much more profound than, again, something like Destiny or Gears. And it seems like, and I can't say this for sure because I only played 2 of them, but it seems like every class gets some mobility skill too. I messed around a little bit with the Devastator, and the Devastator can like fly into the air into this rock swarm, then crash back down on an enemy. I slapped my cup. There's a lot of water in that cup. But it requires line of sight, so it's kind of interesting stuff. So not only does this let you zip right to enemies and stay in the action the whole time, but it also becomes a really important survival tool. If you're low on life, you can warp to an isolated enemy on the other side of the arena, or maybe one you've already softened up a little bit with your guns and knock them out real quick, recover, and keep fighting, as again, opposed to just hiding until your health comes back. If you're seeing this and thinking, wow, that's kind of similar to the Barbarian Leap in Diablo, it's because it is. It's kind of the same thing. And this is so much more fun than just waiting for your shields to come back in Destiny or waiting for the gem to get wiped off your screen in Gears. The mobility skill is also a defensive tool because of the third aspect that differentiates this game from the ones that it really does look like. And this is when the game really starts to look like Diablo. Apart from the basic slew of enemies, you got your normal gunmans, your swordmans, your snipermans, there are captains and full-on bosses that have telegraphed attacks that require a little more effort and gameplay strategy to deal with. Some of these attacks look like they fell right out of Diablo. Like literally right out of Diablo. You've got the Frost Nova, which are little frost orbs that freeze you in place. You've got those little magic disco balls that spin around. These moves are all telegraphed with a cast timer on the enemy's nameplate, too, which means that once you know what these attacks look like, you can then use your abilities to either dodge them or completely counter them. It's pretty cool. And once you lock these 3 factors all in together, healing, abilities, and enemy attacks, you can start to execute combos of skills. For example, the boss at the end of the demo would cast this particular attack that sent these little lightning AoEs kind of floating around the field chasing me. Once I kind of saw the nature of that attack, I would go to one corner of the arena, let all of these AoE bubbles come towards me, and then blink through them to the boss, trigger my time bubble, and then empty all of my guns into the boss's head as much as I could to get in as much damage as I could. Doing that required my cooldowns to be up and for all my guns to be reloaded in the first place too. There were a couple times I'd blink to the boss and have an empty clip and then would do no damage. So that process of learning, forming a plan, and then executing a plan that then works tells me that the gameplay systems are all interacting with each other really well. You have to think ahead, prepare, learn, and then actually, aim and play well in the moment to execute your strategy properly. That's a sign of a game that I really like. One that demonstrates its mechanics to you, gives you the ability to kind of decide where your skill level is at and then try to execute on that skill. I really, really enjoyed it, like a lot. The extra awesome thing on top of all of that is that I only really cared about all that stuff because the game was actually challenging me to play better. Which is not to say the game's hard. No, the way that Outriders handles difficulty might actually be my favorite thing about the whole game. Everything in the game scales as you play. It's kind of like the torment levels in Diablo 3, except it happens dynamically while you're playing the game. As you gain experience from killing, all the shouty mans and doing quests, your world tier levels up at the same time. The higher tier levels work also kind of like Diablo. All the enemies are higher level, but then also you get increased chance of getting rare drops. Now here's the cool thing though, if you die in the game, you actually lose progress towards the next world tier, which theoretically means you just play as you're going to play, and then eventually the game will settle out in its difficulty around where your skill level is. The game will just scale up and get harder until you start dying, and then you'll just lose progress towards the next tier and eventually just stop progressing. Which is a really cool idea. I mean, if you're all gamer tryhard like me, theoretically the game should scale up and actually offer you a good challenge. And it kinda did. But if it's Friday and you just want to crush a beer and chill out with your friends, the game won't ruin your good time with some dark soulsery gamer bullshit. Brief aside on the world tiers, the developers did say that in a co-op game or a multiplayer game, the host decides the tier that everyone's going to play at. So if your friend is just banging it gamer style with their pro controllers and you just want to have a nice relaxing gameplay session, that's kind of a drawback to a system like this, I guess. But when you wrap it all up, the package actually is extremely different and offers unique flavor, even though it looks a little samey on the outside. At its core, it is a shockingly fast action RPG that really does play like Diablo with guns. I'm super excited for it because I love games like this, provided they have that element where you can actually express skill, and Outriders really does, at least in the demo that I played. They also mentioned that the full game is going to have environments that are completely different than the sort of Mad Max crazy town that we saw a lot in the prologue. I'm very excited for that. This is the studio that made Bulletstorm after all, and Painkiller, and those games have some crazy environments. So if the same talent is working on this, I can't wait to see what they come up with. And super brief side note attached to that, the game is really pretty, so I can't wait to see what the environmental artists come up with. So there you go, Diablo with guns and friends. I'm excited for it. Who doesn't like a little bit of fireball gunplay? The premise and setting, I gotta admit, I felt a little jaded about. I'm like, well, I've seen this before. But the gameplay, once you get into the heart and soul of it, is actually unique and very exciting. So thank you, Square, for inviting me to the preview event, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any comments, let me know. If you have any questions about the game, leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to address them as I see them pop up. But thank you for your time, and I'll catch you next time. Bye, everybody.